Chiefs go and get their guy at offensive tackle in the latest mock draft here on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, folks. Hope you enjoyed the NFL Combine. We are talking Mock Draft Monday. We are Locked On Chiefs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. That means your team every day for free on every platform. Whether it's here on YouTube, on the audio feeds on Spotify and Apple, you can find it all. Thanks for making us your first listen. Pick another Locked On show for your next listen. Get a little bit more information. Check out the NFL Draft Show in particular, because I think you're going to like that one. It is that time, and it is Mock Draft Monday. We're going to get to what the Chiefs did in this scenario. Today, I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, NFL33.com, and RGR Football.
Yeah, I will. As soon as I remember to unmute myself, I apologize. I'm Chris Clark. Thank you all for listening. We do appreciate it. Please go hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell on YouTube, or send us a review on iTunes or Spotify. Man, what is this, 7 years?
Yes, and ticking. That's the way we're going to call that.
Right.
And it's evolved. It used to be that mock drafts weren't, they were a novelty, right? Now it is command viewing. And folks, we're going to have a mock draft for you every Monday leading up to the actual NFL draft, particularly since it's in Kansas City. So make sure that you're here every Monday. We have shows throughout the week. Got to make sure that you remember that too. We're here 5 days a week, taking every aspect, every angle that we can on this team. And it starts right here because not anything earth-shattering yet. There's talk of trades and a number of teams and all that kind of stuff. In the end, when you're the Super Bowl winner, you're at the bottom of the list until you see a reason to give up assets to go up. So the scenario this week, and unlike last, we're not going to pick this together. I ran through a mock draft. Chris gets to rip it apart this week. We'll flip it next week. But this is what I ended up doing. And we'll put this on screen so y'all can follow along. Please go over and like and sub on the YouTube feed because that makes this a little bit easier. And what you'll see is the order came off that Jalen Carter still came off at the top spot. Now, there's some off-field issues. They're going to change that. So I think that there are some moving around that's going to happen, but it is only going to affect us in the fact that the Chiefs need offensive tackles. They need edges. They need some wide receivers. They need an interior defensive line to supplement Chris Jones. Obviously, we talked at length last week about Chris Jones and his contract situation. So as it played forth, a number of those positions got eaten up pretty heavily. But we did get a chance to get down at 32, and the Chiefs were able to get an offensive tackle in Darnell Wright, who I think actually fits the mold of what they want. He's a little bit more athletic than DeJuan Jones in terms of the ability to move his feet. He is a powerful guy. He has the length and he has the size. Really kind of leans toward a bookend for Orlando Brown. And he started at right tackle for the Tennessee Volunteers. I think it's a pretty natural fit given that the top four went off the board quite a bit before him.
Yeah, and then you start looking at other guys that would have been available for Kansas City. Obviously, you talked about wide receiver. Jalen Hyatt that just came out last week that Jalen Hyatt did talk to Kansas City and talk to Coach Reed. So there's interest there. Obviously, he wasn't here in this scenario. Darnell Wright, I mean, you start looking at the Chiefs' needs. And right tackle, while not a sexy pick, not something that you would normally think of taking in the first round, anything that they can do to make Mahomes' life better, in my opinion, is something that they should look at doing. And in this case, you look at all the edges that are gone. There's probably not an interior defensive lineman that you'd really want to look at right here. Wide receivers look like they've probably been picked over. So at that point, Kansas City isn't probably going to be looking at a tight end, even though I could argue that. So it makes a lot of sense to go with a guy that could step in and start and gives you a very, very young offensive line outside of your left tackle in Joe Thuney.
It does. You can literally see the progression from right to left on that offensive line. And Darnell Wright is a guy that is sitting on my board here just outside the top 5, but has the things that the Chiefs seem, at least lately, to be going more towards. That is, he has excellent length. He's got great anchor and power. And if we're talking about trying to be able to continue to use the power scheme in the run game in particular, I think that's going to be right up his alley. He is a total bear of a man. And in my evaluation so far, the only question is very much like what we've seen them adapt to. Not the most explosive feet, but he's got that length. He shuffles very smoothly. And so he stays in contact with the ground, which gives him a little bit of a leg up in terms of absorbing contact off the go and being able to re-anchor and redistribute that force outward. He's got great reach.
Well,
He handles the inside rush in particularly well, and I think that's something we've seen them a lot of teams choose to attack Andrew Wiley with.
yeah, and I think that you made some great points. If he's got a good reach on the right side, you're not going to be dealing with speed rushers, generally speaking, on that side of the ball. And if you have good length, that's also going to help against a speed rush. So I think in multiple scenarios, that's a good pick for Kansas City. If they can improve their offensive line from what they were last year, and I still think that they were probably, I would say they're close to the top 5 offensive line. I don't know that you could say that. I know they're a top 10. I just don't know how high you would go in that list. I'd have to look at all the offensive lines, but they were very good last year. And they kept Mahomes upright. And one of the things that you would have to do in this scenario is you have to get Darnell Wright working with Patrick Mahomes to know where his drops are going to be and all of that. And that's going to be something that you can work on in OTAs, but that would really solidify the right side.
It certainly should. And again, if you have your bookend, then you're okay. The other guy that was on the board that I did consider is a guy who I've graded very similarly on tape. We'll see how he actually performs at the combine. Production-wise, Anton Harrison has a little bit more. He's out of Oklahoma. But the fit here with Darnell Wright coming off a Senior Bowl where he made some noise, I think it's a fit, and I think it's more what the Chiefs are looking for right this minute.
If you're looking for a delicious treat but don't want all the fat and calories, then you need to try a Built Bar. With Built, healthy is actually tasty. These are delicious protein bars. You absolutely need to try them. What makes them so good is they're covered in 100% real chocolate, and they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. I don't know how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better is that they are healthy. Only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. For years, we've been telling you to go to Built.com to get your Built Bars, but now you can actually pick them up in stores. You can go to Walmart or to Sam's Club and pick up a box of Built Bars. In Walmart, head to your pharmacy section and grab a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. If you're close to Sam's Club, you can run in and grab a 13-bar box with the new hit flavors, brownie batter, and churro. You can thank us later.
And so in the second round, we come back, and a lot of things go off the board that the Chiefs are looking at. But one of them that you can't really get away from is, yes, Nolan Smith went off at the combine this weekend as the edge rusher extraordinaire, but he is more of a Hassan Reddick type. He is not what the Chiefs are looking for. The Chiefs want power, and they want bulk, size, edge setting, etc. And while this board lists Keon White out of Georgia Tech as an IDL, which I actually tend to agree with. If the Chiefs were to switch to a 5-man front, he would be a 5-tech in this system, but he can play outside. He can play inside at the 3. He's got a really wide versatility there. He's a monster of a man. He's quick, and he plays at like 282. And so he's very much a mirror, just slightly smaller, of what Chris Jones already is in playing all the way from the 3-tech out to the wide 9. And I think that versatility is something the Chiefs probably want to double down on. It's becoming the theme of what they're doing here on the defensive side of the ball and never giving you an easy understanding of where pressure is going to come from.
Yeah, and I have a lot of questions at the interior defensive line when you start looking at the Chiefs. Derek Nottie is a free agent. Colin Saunders is a free agent. They're going to need to replenish the interior of the defensive line along, even though they have Chris Jones, and we are expecting that they're going to extend him because we talked about that on Friday and a lot last week. They need to replenish that position. You need at least 3 guys that can get it after the quarterback at that position because it is so imperative to be able to put pressure from the middle of the field. And when you can do that, you're going to be in a good situation going forward. And I say 3, not 4, because I still think you need somebody that can step in and help you stop the run as well. So that's another thing to really consider when you start looking at these interior defensive linemen. Yes, can they play the pass, but are they going to be able to help you against the run? Because that's going to be something that Kansas City could face.
And that's something that just feeds back into the Keon White discussion. Because he can play 5-tech, because he's efficient at that, he understands the angles in the run game. He's very good against the run. So it gives you that versatility and covers kind of all the bases. That's why I think it's a good fit. And I think it's a pretty good value fit. There are people talking about him as a first rounder. I still don't see that, but I think the versatility does get him into the second round for the Kansas City Chiefs. And so I took advantage of the fact that he was there. And then we moved on to the third round. Now,
speaking of first rounders,
couple here, right?
Yep.
What stands out to you as we look down here the way the first round went, or third round went, sorry?
Man, there's going to be a lot of changes between now and the draft. We talked about Ojulari being maybe a Kansas City pick at the end of the first round a couple of weeks ago, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Now, whether or not he plays that way, we'll see if he can get into the bottom of the first round. But then you keep looking down. Come on, keep going.
Oh, you want to see the payoff? Okay, fine. There you go.
Yeah.
So
there's the first rounder that I was talking about, who absolutely blew up the combine last week.
Again, this algorithm had probably not been updated after he literally did take over the combine and just throw it aside. Tommy Adewale, you heard me talk about him day one of the Senior Bowl while I was down there in Mobile. He was one of the guys that stood out to me the most because he plays with super length. I think he came in at just under 34-inch arms for a guy that's only 6'2" and like 280 pounds. But he plays with great explosion. He penetrates gaps. This is a very similar case to Keon White that we saw earlier, in that this is a guy that's listed at edge, but I actually love him more as a 3-tech, and they're almost interchangeable. They can both play both. And while I don't think after that combine performance that this availability here at 96 is anywhere near the realm of possibility, I decided to take advantage of it because it was there. So if you take a step back and we get the right tackle in the first round, and then we come back here and we get two guys that can play inside and outside on that defensive front with George Karlaftis and Chris Jones, how do you feel about them as a pair maybe?
I feel really good about that. I think that this is the position that you need to focus on. This is one of the positions you need to focus on as the defensive line. I think you need to rebuild that up. And I think if you look back at what Kansas City was doing at the combine, they were talking to a lot of edge prospects, a lot of interior defensive lineman prospects. And really quick, before we continue, I just want to say this draft machine is not updated with the right pick numbers. They're in the right order, but Kansas City would have 31 and 63 and 95. So it's a little bit off. But just want to throw that out there in case anybody's looking at that and going, well, they don't pick 96. They pick 95. Yeah, it's off because it doesn't have that forfeited pick taken out. So, but I like the pick. I think that it's if he is possibly even there in the second round, which I can't see after the way he blew up the combine, I think he would jump on that.
Agreed. It's a great story as well. Grew up a Chiefs fan. Multiple guys have come out and said, hey, I grew up a Chiefs fan. I'd love to land there. Obviously, you just won a Super Bowl. That gets you some of that goodwill. A couple of points to make here. I debated long and hard because I'd already gotten an interior defensive lineman going away from Adewale towards Cedric Tillman, a guy that can play the X, that is more explosive, has the leaping ability that I think could fit into the offense, especially if it's going in towards that direction like we talked about on Friday. There's
another guy on here at pick number 100 that I think is going to shoot up draft boards as well.
Yes, as very much in a similar vein.
His combine performance.
And another undersized interior defensive lineman that can penetrate gaps and take away run lanes. And that's you're absolutely right. I don't think those guys will actually be here when it's all said and done. But,
from Pitt, yes, nonetheless.
It's like there's a track record there or something.
Right.
But that said, and I know a lot of folks will see this and say, well, why didn't you go for Brents? He's homegrown. He played at K-State. I think this is actually the opposite. This is a little high for Brents. I think he's going to be an early day 3 guy, but we'll get there when we get there. All that goes to show that things move around. And what we have to get through next is the last 17,000 picks that the Chiefs have, because they have a ton of them. We'll do that right after this. And now we get to the bulk of where the Chiefs have picks, so much so that just keeping them organized becomes a chore. And so, as I was saying, Cedric Tillman was on the board. You have to go back there and you have to take a look at what else can help you. You have holes on the offense too. Let's not decide that because it's a Super Bowl team that you don't have holes. And one of my guys is there. And in this situation, I fully admit, folks, that if you're going to leave your comments on the YouTube page, please let me know. If you're going to complain that I picked a lot of my guys, quote unquote, you're absolutely right. I had the opportunity, so I went for it. But didn't get Tillman earlier. Came back. A.T. Perry is there, another sizable guy that can play the X, plays it well. He's out of Wake. What's your impression of that one?
Man, if they can figure out that X position, I think that could be huge for this offense. They need to have somebody that's going to be young and they can continue to grow in this offense. And you look at the guys that they brought in with, Sky Moore last year, and bringing in Kadarius Toney, you're not going to have those types of wide receivers on this roster right now. You just don't have that guy. So getting somebody that can step in and play that position, I think, is very important. And if you think he can do the X in the Kansas City offense, the nice thing is he doesn't have to come in and be a stud week one. He's got two young guys that are going to be playing a lot more this coming year, and Travis Kelce is still probably going to be, I would think, the number one tight end in football. So he's going to have a lot of room to be able to grow and take his time, because that's really what usually happens in Reed's offenses.
Very much agree. Now, I know you guys can see the screen, and yes, I was debating between two of my guys, and Kenny McIntosh is there. I just had a long or a very heated exchange anyway with Kent on Twitter that you want to check out, because Kenny is one of my guys too, and in this offense I think he would be extremely useful, but I decided to hold off for positional value in terms of what the Chiefs need to do, and you'll see why that paid off with the Chiefs' next pick, because at 134 Rashawn Johnson is still available, the Texas running back who backed up Bijan Robinson, who has very, very, very low mileage, is a big back that has the explosive traits, very much in the similar vein, with probably better vision than Isaiah Pacheco, is a guy that if he's sitting here, you have to consider it. Even I, who wouldn't take a top 100 running back at 134, I can feel pretty comfortable with that.
Yeah, and if you can improve the offense and you get younger at that position, I think that's going to be something that's going to be beneficial for this team. They have to be able to run the ball. And I hate saying that because I know what you're thinking, and you want them running the ball 60% of the time. I'm not saying that, but they need to be able to run the ball, and they need to be able to run it efficiently. I think Pacheco is obviously the starter going forward there, but to have a guy that's going to complement him and be able to come in and kind of do some of the things he can do as well is definitely going to be something that they should be looking for.
Yeah, I like that ability. We come down to the next pick in the fifth at 168, and Chiefs get lucky here. We've heard a lot of talk about how good the tight end draft class is. And I've said as well, yes, you have to think about the future of Travis Kelce, but there's so many of them, you can afford to wait. And this is exactly why. Luke Schoonemaker available at 168, the tight end from Michigan who can do it all. Y inline, H-back, can split out and run from the slot. He's got more of a body type of Travis Kelce. He's not as explosive or slippery, but he's similar. And he can come in line. He'll wham block for you. He can do more of the blocking than what Noah Gray does right now. And so it's a nice tweener there. So I had to take the chance on him, and I don't know that he'll be here. I think he goes a little bit higher in this in the end, but this is somewhere that may be an early day 3 possibility for the Chiefs in reality, as well as this scenario.
Yeah, and I would actually think that tight end might be something that they look at even higher in this draft. I'm not going to say that I don't like Schoonemaker here. I think that could be a good pick. I'm just saying that is a position that is so deep in this draft. You would be getting maybe a guy that would normally maybe be a first-round pick in most years could be available in the late second round, maybe third round, just because tight end is so deep.
Never know. That brings us to the 6th round, and this is where the bulk of the Chiefs' picks are. And because I did no trades, we have a lot of picks to get through here, folks. So I'm gonna name off the 3 for this round, and we'll let Chris see what he likes and what he doesn't. I started off with another speedier, bendier pass rusher who's listed as a linebacker, and Yasir Abdullah from Louisville. I like that as a change of pace to all the big ends that we're used to, and including the 2 guys that we took earlier in this draft. We came back with another one of my guys in Mitchell Tinsley, who makes me feel pretty good because he was the biggest target, the most explosive target for Bailey Zappi back at Western Kentucky when they broke all those records. 1,800 yards and I think 14 touchdowns. Then he goes to Penn State with a noticeable drop-off in quarterback talent, still puts up 600 yards and I think 5 touchdowns. A guy that I could come in and could battle for maybe that 5th wide receiver spot in the future and really help them out. How do you like those?
Abdullah, if you're talking smaller defensive end, that sounds a lot like what Frank Clark was this year.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people aren't going to look at Frank Clark and think he's a smaller defensive end. He was this year. I think he played closer to 235 than probably 255. And I think that's, Spags was able to see that that's going to work in his defense to an extent. So I think that works. If they can get a value there and he can get after the quarterback, that's something you got to be looking at because defensive end is always going to be a position you want full.
And I'm really treating this whole exercise in this scenario as though this were the Chiefs' version of when they rebuilt the offensive line. And so I have taken, excuse me, I had to change the window there. I've taken the liberty of really stocking up at the position because I came back and Ali Gay was available in the next round from LSU. Again, not the explosive guy that BJ Ojolari was, but more of the strong edge, set the edge, powerful guy. Feeds into what we've seen from Steve Spagnuolo and what he wants in his edges. I think he doesn't round the corner as well as you would like, but he is a little bit more developmental. A guy that's had a significant injury that I still feel he is recovering from. So I think you can put him on this roster and let him battle for a spot. Might even take the herring route and have to be a practice squad player for the beginning. And let's see what you can get from him. But keep investing in the defensive front.
It just sounds like a mystery training camp injury that ends him up on IR. Just going to throw that out there.
It's a tool. It's not a mystery. Yeah. It's a tool.
Okay.
Just based on sheer volume and availability, I came back the next pick at 252 with Eli Ricks, the corner from Alabama. Started at LSU, moved over to Alabama, has not really fulfilled his potential. Another guy that you might be able to see take a leap if he gets into the system, much like we saw with Watson and Williams this last season. So I was willing to roll the dice. And then just as a last nearly Mr. Irrelevant, Bryce Ford-Wheaton, who had a lot of hype preseason, the wide receiver from Mountaineers. You never have enough weapons, and he's got some unique things about him. He is explosive. I do think he has top end speed, but he'll have to come in and fight for a spot. And that's how I finished out round 7.
Yeah, and you start looking at some of these guys that you're going to be picking in 6 and 7, and you got to really think, are they going to be able to step in and be special teams guys? Because that's how they're going to make their roster at this point. So, is Eli Ricks going to be able to step in and maybe replace Najee Johnson? You got to remember, Najee Johnson was considered a DB last year, rookie DB, and played special teams most of the season. And, when you start looking at the wide receiver, they just lost Marcus Kemp to the Commanders. He's not going to be back. So you're in a situation where you're going to need special teams guys, and that this is where you fill that out.
And that's really the whole process. We took the top 100 picks. We filled the 2 most urgent needs: offensive tackle, defensive pass rusher. Whether that's edge or tackle or wherever you line them up, the versatility there allows that. We passed on the wide receiver in the 3rd round to come back and pick up some guys down the line because we think there's depth that can develop. We'll see what happens as free agency starts to lift off here in the coming weeks. What happens then? Because that will change the Chiefs' needs quite significantly. So, Chris, what's your favorite pick of this draft?
I'm a guy that really likes a lot of offense. So while it's a little different, I'm going to say the right tackle, mainly because when you start looking at what you're going to be able to do on offense, it's a question of how long can you give Mahomes to throw the ball. If they can get better at either tackle position going forward, they're going to be in a better spot. And Mahomes is going to be able to do even more than he was able to do this past year when he won the Super Bowl and MVP. So to me, if you can improve the offensive line in the 1st round, and I'm not talking interior, I'm talking one of the tackles, then you do it. Because to me, the other part of that is I don't trust who they have right now. I don't think they're going to get Andrew Wiley back, and I don't trust Lucas Niang to be that guy.
That's the unfortunate part. We just don't know if that trust is even worth it or not because he's been so injured for so long. I agree with you there. For me, it's Tommy Adewale because it was just such a lark that he was there. I had to take advantage of it. I could have gone a whole round earlier, been happy as a clam. So if you guys haven't seen my timeline yet, got the Athletic Matrix out on him very, very quickly because he is number 1 across the board except for one category in his athleticism at the defensive line front. And he's right up there with the elite of the last 4 classes. So check out my timeline. Go to rogueapc.com to get pre-ordered for the Athletic Matrix. He will be heavily up front. And you will see a lot of other players that the Chiefs will either have contact to or will have interest in based on their athleticism because this is still an athleticism-based evaluation for a lot of guys that the Chiefs are going to end up taking. So let us know what you liked about this draft and what you didn't. Leave your comments here on the YouTube page underneath. Leave us in the Apple reviews, in the Spotify reviews, wherever you want to go. Locked On Chiefs on Twitter, at Chiefs Corner on Twitter, at Ryan Tracy NFL on Twitter. You can hit us any of those spots. We'd love to get into the conversation. There's a lot more coming. We'll have another mock draft for you next Monday. But in the meantime, Chiefs free agent needs, what specifically they're looking for. I'll have some player reviews. We'll have Matt Derrick back with us. We have a lot coming 5 days a week here on Locked On Chiefs Thanks for being with us. Check out the Locked On NFL Draft Show. Get more information because it is right around the corner as we speak. Thank you for spending your time with us today, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.